I'm going to try to make this video short and sweet because there are resources in the course that you can look at. I have some sample visual aids that are good samples, and you could use those as a guideline and some check sheets for visual aids. So let me just share my screen here and we will get started. All right. All right, so planning the visual aid, you are going to use the visual aid for the informative presentation. Remember, the point of any visual aid is to increase our understanding. So it should not supplement what you're saying, it should just extend what you're saying. Technology-based visual aids like PowerPoint or Google Slides give special consideration to how you create your slides, clear, consistent, and uniform throughout the presentation. Similar font size if you're using text. Just images work great depending on your topic. And remember, you don't want to read from your slides. This is kind of interesting when we look at a recorded presentation, but you're going to use them a little bit differently. You shouldn't have enough text on them. Like what I use here for these mini lectures would not make good visual aids. So use that as your guide. Let's see if we get this to click through. There we go. All right, so if you're using images, images are great uses of visual aids that can extend our understanding. Just a few simple images. You do not want to load a slide with a bunch of images. I say two, maybe no more than three at most on a slide. A lot of times just one works well. Again, look at those samples. There's a sample in there about color blindness. Fabulous visual aid, really extended our understanding. When you're not talking about something on a slide, you can go ahead and put a blank slide in between them. It lets us know that we don't need to be looking somewhere. And be very mindful of graphic images. I had a student back when we did persuasive speeches, and she was doing something about reducing using plastics, and she was going to use a video. There was a video years ago. It was a sea turtle, and there was a straw that was stuck in its nose. And I said, you cannot let that image just sit there. We don't want to look at that. Sure enough, she let it sit there, and then it became a distraction. So no distractions with visual aids. So design layout, things to consider. Use a consistent design for each slide. If you've noticed with the mini lectures I've used the same structure throughout. I haven't varied from slide to slide. Also use the same font style and font size for each slide. Using a light background with dark font is the most ADA compliant. Again, I can't say this enough. Light background, dark font. I know many of you are accustomed to using the dark background with a white font. That is actually not the most ADA compliant. You never know in your audience if someone has any visual impairment. You're certainly not going to ask, so you want to always just think about that a little bit. Um, again, don't put too much on each slide. No more than 2 or 3 images per slide. Use the URL. If you use an online image, if you just put the URL underneath it, that is fine. Don't worry about putting it in your works cited. And again, use a blank slide when you're discussing something that doesn't need a visual aid. All right, a couple other tips. Using statistics in a speech. When if you're using numbers, you need to simplify things. Now, if you're going to use a graph, a chart, that's fine, one per slide, and you want to keep things simple. Also, if you're just using an image of a chart or a graph from something, be careful of the color combinations. Making sure that we can see it, making sure that we understand the text. Make sure that that's easy to read. Some presentation tips. Check your grammar. A presentation is the worst time to see misspelling. So go back, reread a couple times. Don't make too many slides. You get a slide rush that you feel like you have to keep flicking through. I'm not telling you you don't have a certain requirement number of slides, minimum or maximum. But when you're clicking through the slides, again, they should be purposeful and it should make sense to what you're doing. If you use a Google or other image, the URL, and like everything, keep it simple. If your information is simple and clear and focused, and your visual aid is the same, we're going to understand so much more about your topic by the time you get through your presentation. And that's it. That's just some tips for visual aids. Look at those samples in the course, and if you're not sure, you can certainly email me and ask any questions.